Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. I am here to do some recommendations for the solo witch board for Witchathon. Now, these are just books that I've read in the past that I believe fits really well, and I have my handy dandy notebook over here to kind of go through them. Now, I believe the way that I have these written down is I'm going by each line, so I don't have the board in front of me, but I'll post a picture of the board on the screen as well. But for solo witches, we have a witchy book, which is any book that has to do with witches, supernatural type of things that have witches as a supernatural creature in it, or even if you want to go the nonfiction route like I do with all my witchcraft type books. But for the witchy book, I chose The Witch's Daughter by Paula Braxton. This follows Elizabeth, who is a 384-year-old witch, and in her past and present as she begins to mentor a young girl in the ways of becoming a hedge witch. So I really enjoyed this. It's told in dual timelines, so you go back in the past of Elizabeth and then go into the present of when she teaches the young girl about her practice. Now, and then we have TBR Vet. This will obviously depend on your TBR. So for me, it'll probably be any. I'm counting any tarot TBR books for mine. It's whatever has been on your TBR, Goodreads TBR for the longest, or whatever it's been on your TBR consistently for the past few months. You can make it work however you see fit. Next prompt is fantasy, and this is obviously pretty broad. There's a lot of fantasy out there, but I chose The Song of the Lioness by Tamora Pierce. This follows Alana as her and her twin brother switch places because she wants to become a knight while he wants to study magic. And in their world, girls can't become knights, and majority of the time boys don't become magicians or wizards or whatever. So they switch places, and she becomes she starts to train in knighthood. And this is about a 4-book series, if I'm remembering correctly. It could be a little bit longer. It's been a while since I've last read it, but I really did enjoy it. And Tamora Pierce is one of my favorite authors. So I definitely highly recommend her books. The next prompt is an earthy book. So really, you can interpret that in any way you want, like with earth colors on the cover, or anything kind of that relates back to the earth in its title, or if it's set outside majority of the time, like in a forest, anything like that will work. I chose Lumberjanes Volume One by I didn't write down the author name. I'm not too sure. I'll post a picture of it. But this follows a group of girls when they're at a summer camp. So camp being outside, it's very earthy. Next is Stars in the Title or on the Cover. I chose Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. The cover that I read anyways of this version of this book is of a night sky. And this is following a court case. It's a somewhat crime thriller novel, but mostly it runs throughout the entire span of a court case, and you get like a first person perspective almost between the different characters. Water on the Cover is the next prompt, and I chose The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This follows a journalist who is on assignment pretty much of her career, where she gets to have a week on a luxury cruise ship, but she ends up witnessing a crime or that like no one can answer for. So she takes it upon herself to kind of uncover what happened. So I really enjoyed it. I think it was my first Ruth Ware book that I've read, so I definitely highly recommend it as a first time debut into the author's work. Next is a host fave. This is obvious. Each of the co-hosts have their own favorites listed on their intro card, so you don't necessarily have to pick one of my faves, but you can choose any other of the priestesses faves if you like. The next is a book club pick. Since I run or co-host a book club, I thought it was fitting to have a book club pick on the board to kind of help myself out as well. So any book club pick for any book club. It doesn't have to be the late night bookworming book club. It can be any type of book club whatsoever. Next is an ebook or an audiobook, and for this I chose Warcross by Marie Lu. I really enjoyed this audiobook, and this is a book that I gave 5 stars to, and I thought that the narrator did an amazing job with telling the story. It follows a hacker as she uncovers things that are going on in this major gaming competition, and the company hires her to go undercover to try to locate another possible hacker that's in the games. I believe this is supposed to be a duology. I haven't read the second book. It's something that I definitely would like to get my hands on, but I definitely really recommend Warcross for this. Crystals on the cover or in the title. This is pretty self-explanatory. I chose a nonfiction witchy book, which is Practical Magic, A Beginner's Guide to Crystals, Horoscopes, Psychics, and Spells. This is one that I had picked up early on when I first started my practice, and I definitely believe that it is a good resource if you're just wanting to get into something but don't want to dive too deep yet, you're just curious. This is definitely one I suggest. Gods and Goddesses, any type of mythology that has to do with any type of god. I chose Norse mythology by Neil Gaiman. One of my deities is Loki, so there's no, I couldn't not recommend Norse mythology because Loki demands it. So next is Fire on the Cover. This version of the book, or this cover of the book that I read, has a small fire on the cover, but it's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Caitlin Doherty. This is Caitlin Doherty from Ask a Mortician here on YouTube. She really makes death not as scary as most people have a fear of death, and anytime death is mentioned and the death industry is mentioned, it's usually all really taboo. But reading her books and watching her videos over the years, I really got to the point in my life with death that I am not super afraid of it. I still have some sense of dread because it feels like we never really get much time with the loved ones that have passed, but it doesn't make it as scary. At least to me, knowing what the process of what happens after makes it less scary. Next prompt is Flowers on the Cover or in the Title. I chose Malice by Heather Walter. This has a rose on the cover of the one version that I read, and I really loved Malice. It is a duology retelling of Sleeping Beauty. It's a sapphic retelling as well, so I highly recommend it. Next prompt is Star Signs Picks Your Books. This will be if you have ever done an astrology chart or did a birth chart for yourself. It's the 12 different houses with the different planets involved on it, and usually I just mostly focus on my big 3 Sun Virgo, Moon Virgo, Rising Libra. So any of those star signs could pick my book for this particular prompt. Anything that reminds me of the earthiness of being a Virgo or being really detail orientated, things like that, I would pick something like that for this prompt. Time travel. I chose Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, and this fits for more than one prompt as well, because there is a small time travel aspect in Discovery of Witches, and this is kind of like a dark academia that has to do with witches, vampires, and demons, so I highly recommend it. Next is Tarot on the cover. Any of the Tarot Major Arcana cards will work, like the Lovers, the Tower, Hermit, anything like that, or you could go an even simpler route with having the Cups, Swords, Wands, and Pentacles or coins on the cover. And with this, I chose Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I believe that there's a sword on the cover. It's been a while since I've written this list, so now I'm blanking on what a lot of the covers look like. But this is a retelling of like the Rumpelstiltskin fairy tale, and for me right now, I wouldn't mind rereading it because it's in a very icy setting, and for all that is holy, I would like fall and winter to come now because I am burning up in this heat. So I definitely recommend Spinning Silver. It was definitely a very atmospheric, really puts you into that polar icy setting. Next is a shiny cover. This can be like a high gloss cover, or the font, it has some shine to it. Any way you can make it work again. I chose The Alchemist by Michael Scott. This kind of has a storyline that follows Nicholas Flamel and two twins that help him try to uncover, I believe, a book that has been missing for quite a few decades, maybe even centuries. This is a book that I read in high school and I really, really enjoyed it. So it is about time for a reread because I don't quite remember a whole lot about the book, but I do remember that the cover was pretty shiny. A powerful read, I chose The Callous Enemies by George Taki. I read this earlier in the year, and it's a graphic memoir about his family's time in the Japanese internment camps during World War II. I definitely believe everyone should read this graphic novel because it's so powerful and heartbreaking that it just gives you a good look of how the Japanese Americans were treated during that time and how awful that their treatment was and had continued for years after. A next prompt is a 300+ page book. I chose A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout, the prequel to the From Blood and Ash series. I love this book. Well, this series is just the first book in this series that's currently out, but I love that and From Blood and Ash. So anything that's 300 pages plus will work for this. A smoky cover. I chose Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendara Blake. Really any smoky cover, however you want to define it. It can have literal flame with the smoke on it, or you can have like a charcoal gray cover, something that makes it look really dusty and smoky. Any color that has kind of a muted, dusty look to it, you can use it as a smoky cover, because I like smoky purple, smoky gray, smoky blue, things like that, that has a literal kind of color sense to it. That one fit for it. And Anna Dressed in Blood is a really good YA, like horror themed novel that I had really enjoyed when I was younger. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like a haunted house themed book, so I definitely recommend it. Next is a standalone, which is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. This is another hard-hitting, powerful book, so this will go for powerful read as well. It delves into the history of these types of kind of like rehabilitation schools, or schools that take kind of troubled youth, but they don't necessarily turn their lives around. They make things a whole lot worse, and they are known for terrible treatment of these children. It's based on one of those schools that's actually just maybe about an hour away from where I am in Florida, and it was so heartbreaking. It gave me goosebumps the whole time I read this book. It was definitely a 5 stars. I recommend Colson Whitehead's book in general. I read The Underground Railroad and The Nickel Boys, and I plan on getting to Harlem Shuffle sometime soon. I'm hoping sometime this year I'll get to Harlem Shuffle. His writing is really powerful. And next, the third from the last prompt, Moon on the cover, super easy. I chose another nonfiction witch book, which is Witch Unleashed, Untamed, and Unapologetic by Lisa Lister. This really goes more into the author's path, and along with giving some spell work and some information to use in your own practice. I definitely recommend this. And in the sea in which is a crescent moon. And the last 2 prompts are pretty easy. They are also depends on your reading as well, like a reread. Any book that you need to reread this year in preparation for a series, or if you haven't, like me, haven't read a lot of these books in quite a few years and you need a refresher in what they actually are, then a reread is good for you. And the last prompt is family picks a book. For me and my sister have pretty similar reading tastes, so anytime I recommend a book to her, she puts it on her TBR and vice versa. So I really thought it was fitting to have a family picks a book, because I come from a family of readers, so it's only fitting that I have family picks a book on my board. But that is the bingo board for the Solo Witches. I hope you enjoy the readathon and choose a team that best fits you and your reading style and what your practice is. I really tried to make all the boards fit the host of what vibes I got from them, so I really hope you all enjoy this readathon. I will leave a link to the Discord in the description box, along with the Google Drive and the Twitter for the readathon. When you click on the Discord, this time around it shouldn't be an expiring link, so it should be good for a while. There is a thread in the Discord where you will choose your coven. You'll choose an emoji based on that coven, and then it will unlock a special team chat channel for just your coven itself, and you'll be able to plot everyone's demise, because the winning team's leader gets to pick a book for all the other team leaders to read the next month. And this readathon will run up until September 5th, the day before my birthday. I decided to go ahead and run it for an extra, additional, almost a week into September, to give everyone more time to get those pages in. And there is also a book submitter in the Google Drive as well. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, or check in with the Discord or the Twitter. Someone will get to your question as soon as we can, and let me know what teams you're planning on joining. And until next time, witches, blessed be.